Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to hang out this afternoon. How have you guys been enjoying the conference so far? Learned some great things? Perfect. So I'm Amy with Safety Bus Campus. We have been in business for about 20 years. So all of that has been the business of safety. I was born and raised on a mixed farm around Bonnyville, Alberta. And so we did a little bit of everything. Family farm. I helped out a lot with, well, pretty much you name it. I was the oldest child, so I was the one out there with my dad quite often. And we had a lot of fun. Farming is a great lifestyle. When it comes to safety, is farming always great at safety? Improving, and that's what we're looking at. And for me, farming is a passion, as is safety, so there's no better thing to be able to marry the two together. Few questions. How many of you are farming right now? So we've got a few. Out of you guys, how many of you have a safety manual that you use? Okay, I've at least one nod.
We have one manual, whether it's in use.
So you got it, and you can look at it. All right. How many of you have a work-alone plan? Or at least some form of check-in system? Hey, we've got employee training, and I mean a combination of in-house training, and if there's things that you're not experts in, sending them over to people that do have that specialization. Orientations, hazard assessments, I can go through this whole list. These are all things that are really important and involved in having not only a safe farm, but building into your legacy. So I just picked up our skid steer from the case dealer, and I took the opportunity to walk around a combine, which is something I haven't done in a few years, and just see how far equipment has come when we look at the safety side of things. So I counted, anyone want to guess how many stickers I counted from the ground walking around? How many warning? It was right around 30 warning stickers, and I didn't get up on the top. I saw there was a few up there as well. So if we look at these pictures, I know they're small, but what are some safety advances or innovations that have been put into our equipment? Great, so we got lockout arms, excellent. What else? Is there anything else you need to do with the seat? Do you need to put on your seatbelt? You should, okay. So depending on the equipment, some stuff you have to have that seatbelt actually locked in place, and I know there's workarounds. Fire extinguishers, how many of you leave those fire extinguishers where they should be? How about the guards? Are the guards still on? So quite a few things to think about, even the fact that there's extensions at the top of our ladders getting on our equipment, so you have that handrail. Handrails if you're up above equipment, which often I know we put down. So I have one gentleman here that was part of our Ag Pro Safe program. Were any of the other one of you guys? No, okay. So this was really cool. Nicole Neubauer came to me talking about, hey, wouldn't it be cool to start training these kids in junior high about safety? So they can start educating others around them, including their families. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, that would be amazing. I would love to be able to be part of that. So our team jumped in, and a few of the really memorable things that we talked about, or that we did for demonstrations, one was a helmet drop. And this was something that was an aha moment, not only for the kids, but even for the instructors for some of our team. So with a helmet, if you're 20 feet off the ground, we simulated dropping that helmet. It'd be like having a crash at 40 kilometers an hour. So not really fast, but certainly fast enough. And you'll see from the picture there, I don't know if my laser pointer works, no, how the pumpkin itself, no good. With a helmet, the proper fitting helmet, the pumpkin fared well, but the helmet that was too big, the pumpkin still didn't do the best. We did a harness test. We talked a lot about working at heights and how harnesses are so important, but you need to make sure they fit you properly. And somebody under 100 pounds shouldn't be wearing a harness. These are things people don't always realize. And just the fact that our harnesses not only protect us from a fall, but they keep you upright. So even if your legs were to hit the ground, it's not going to be your head. Confined space simulation. Played around with some canola. What did we learn about the canola? Do you remember? Yeah. You want to tell us?
You'll sink fast.
Yeah, 4 to 5 seconds, you're engulfed in canola enough that if someone was to try pull you out, it would take 800 pounds of force. So an idea was, hey, why don't we wrap a sling around the person and pull them out? Well, what would happen if we did that? Yeah, sure. Yeah, we could tear that person right in half. So a lot of these things, maybe we don't even have that knowledge of information of what are our actual consequences. With the equipment, there's all kinds of equipment we had around that the kids got to walk, do pre-use inspections, look at hazards. We talked about a lot of PPE, including the use of seat belts, the use of helmets, all the other type of PPE, and knowing what to wear for what purpose. If you look at that little person there, that person simulates pesticide absorption rates. Now, where do you notice on that person is the highest absorption rate? So they say scrotal, so genital areas. Now think, are you always wearing gloves? And if you're not, are you washing your hands before you go to the bathroom? Or maybe you're wearing gloves and it's hot, you're sweating, and you do this. What have you now done? Both your forehead and your scalp have very high absorption rates. Hazard identification. How did we identify hazards in our class? What was some of the things we did back there? Do you remember? So we just did some simple exercises where you just look around. Oh, this could be dangerous. Oh, okay, so doing this could be dangerous. What can you do to take away some of the risk? Could you make a plan? Could you put on PPE? Could you maybe not do the job because it's not safe for you to do because you don't know how? So we went through all kinds of things. So again, super cool experience, something that will certainly continue. But, you know, as a company that promotes safety, we can educate, we can do so much, but who is the real influence? We ask the kids a lot of questions. Hey, what are you guys seeing? What are you guys doing? Is everybody wearing seat belts? Are you guys wearing gloves? Are there guards on these augers? Guess what a lot of our answers were? No, no, and no. Not always, but certainly some of those responses came up. So when it comes to a safety program, the whole idea with a safety program is to have a structured approach that's going to be designed to prevent incidents, injuries, but also what's not up there is illnesses, and that's super important. Doing hazard assessments, looking at your level of risk, having people trained properly, doing inspections, these are all simple things and they don't take a whole lot of time, nor do they have a whole lot of cost. Occupational health and safety does have regulations for any of you that have waged employees. So looking at really the basics of safety. So OH&S, what they want is to be able to prevent injury, illness, damage. Those are the three things. If you are an employer, you have to make sure that you have a safe work environment. You need to provide necessary PPE, safety training, make sure you're maintaining equipment. But employees likewise have the ability and the responsibility to have to do these things. So they need to work safely, use the right PPE, take the training that you've provided, and report unsafe conditions. And something unsafe could be for that one employee because maybe they just don't have enough training yet. Maybe they don't have the right PPE at that time, so it could be a real simple fix. But employees do have 3 rights. And they are the right to know the hazards, the right to participate, and of course, the most important, the right to refuse something that would be unsafe for them. So when it comes to safety programs, I know we always want to know what's in it for me. So by implementing a safety program, you could reduce the number of incidents as well as injuries. If you are showing a focus to safety, it's a huge thing for culture and morale. People really feel valued, and we'll talk about barriers later, even though change is difficult. Really understanding why a program is coming into place is going to help people. And increase productivity. How much downtime can you face if you have a piece of equipment that's been damaged and you're waiting for a part? How long could you wait? Days, weeks? Or what if you have an employee who's hurt and they can't work for a week or two? Who's likely taking their place? Yes, boys? Could be you guys, right? As owners, quite often, that's who's going to be taking on those extra loads. And let's face it, I'm pretty sure you're busy enough as it is. So when it comes to things like efficiency, reducing interruptions, clear procedures. Now, we can go to a time where we show somebody how to do something once or twice, and then they have a procedure they can follow instead of us having to show them over and over and over again. And with technology, this could be a video to watch that you've made, or maybe you found a YouTube online, or you just write out a step-by-step. Inspections will help with inefficiencies. They're going to protect your valuable assets, your equipment, your things now so that they're not damaged later. Money, that's always a big driver, right? So when we save time, we save money. And we've got all kinds of things that we can do that with, but really a lot of it is down to let's prevent that downtime. So we had a client that we worked with and we've been working with them for a couple years, and it was really interesting. So when this client came to us, they're a transport company. They were having spill after spill, and their equipment was constantly being repaired. We hosted some safety meetings. We had, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10% participation at best. So we kept working with this company. We got some communication going. We made things very simple, easy to do. They actually were enjoying this change in safety culture, and all of a sudden, guess what happened to all those spills? They were reduced significantly. Damage was reduced significantly, and now when there's a safety meeting, we almost have full attendance because people are feeling valued and they're enjoying the change and they're seeing the results and how it not only impacts the company, but it impacts their productivity as well. So for cost insurance, I've got a next slide about insurance, but what happens when you have a claim? Now insurance is already expensive, we know that. But claims are just going to increase that. Medical costs, that can be absolutely huge. We've talked about that downtime many times. Increased employee retention. Nobody wants to keep hiring because people are changing jobs. If they feel truly valued and safe and secure, that's how you build culture. You know, I read a book called The Culture Code a few years ago, and it really stuck with me that right after food and shelter, safety and security is what humans value. And enhanced reputation. There's a lot of programs when it comes to food safety, environmental protection plans, all those things, in some cases to farmers are mandatory, but throw in a safety program with that. Promote it with these big companies that you want to work with. I guarantee that's something that they're going to value as well. So I found a few Alberta stats for insurance. So in 2022, 1,200 insurance claims. Now, does everybody put a claim in? No, they're going to think about it, is it worthwhile or not? So this number is not going to be a truly accurate number, but gives us a good idea. Even with an average claim of $1,500, or $15,000, if we look at the bottom, that impacts Alberta farms $18 million annually. Exactly, reported. And if we look at that third stat, 35% of our claims are people who are actually injured. And if we continue going, how are people getting injured? Cuts, lacerations, usually tools and equipment we're using quite often because we're not using the equipment properly or using the right PPE. Sprains, strains could be from improper lifting, repetitive motion, falls. How many of you have fallen off a piece of equipment? Oh, I've got all my young boys at the back. Off a grain bin. There's so many things that we can fall from. And there's so many simple solutions we could add to prevent those. Machinery, well, there's all kinds of hazards. We saw a lot of pictures earlier on. So over 1,500 reported injuries annually, again, reported. Now, if you are a farm with waged workers and we have a serious injury, there is reporting necessary. Through WCB, there's some reporting, but is this a true number? No, it's not. 20% of these injuries mean someone's going to be off work. And when are we going to have these injuries where people are off work? What kind of seasons are these going to be in? Exactly. It's always going to be the very busiest times where we need all hands on deck. So this stat really, really spoke to me as being somebody who had lived in a farm family. The Canadian Agricultural Injury Reporting found that when it comes to farm fatalities, next to that, 15% were who? Children of the owners. 12% were hired workers. So those would be those employees that we're talking about that we do need safety in place for. We need safety in place for everyone, but legally, I should add. 8% relatives, 3% were spouses, and 2% visitors. When are these fatalities happening most? What's that big box tell us? 50% of these are when people are working alone. Again, where I really want to enhance those work alone plans. These case studies, amazing. I would love to be part of bringing these success stories to every farm possible. So we have the first one in Peace River. A farm implemented a safety program, reduced incidents by 40% in 1 year. So that first year, it involved mostly doing safety training and buddy systems. How much is that going to cost you to implement? Versus how much do you think you would save if you had 40% less incidents? Second one, Southern Alberta Farm adopted advanced machinery safety checks leading to 0 incidents during busy harvest season. Again, amazing. Regular maintenance schedules and operator training were crucial. Dairy farmer, they established a safety committee. So having a safety committee means that you as the owner don't have to do all this work. You're going to have your team helping out significantly. So it increased employee engagement and resulted in a 30% decrease in workplace incidents. So some of the things that they were noticing, training, employee involvement, having our regular program evaluation reviews were a big part of the success. ERP's emergency response plans. We just had an emergency alert come out. These types of things, planning for emergencies, has to happen. Number one thing, you need to know, what are the biggest emergencies you can face on your farms? Once you know that, start building a plan for each and every one of those. So we've got a few things listed: fires, chemical spills, severe weather. Could even be wildlife interactions. With that AR session, they had a lot of examples of where AI can even help with that wildlife. So really cool things coming up. So when you're training, maybe you're training for fires. Well, do people know how to use a fire extinguisher? Do they know where they are? Do they have water in place that's going to be necessary? If somebody is hurt and severely bleeding, does the team know how to do first aid? Just a few examples. Chemical. Somebody gets chemical in their eye, what are you going to do? So have that training in place. Have a work alone plan. This one, I can't stress enough. I don't know a farm out there that doesn't have people working by themselves and possibly working and nobody even knows where they are. So how do you regularly communicate? Make a plan. Is it going to be maybe once an hour? Just a quick call, quick text. If that person doesn't get back to you, you're going out to find them because guess what? You know exactly where they are because if they've changed locations, they have let you know. And then just, anytime you say, well, this is really high-risk work, send 2 people, please. And then review and update this plan. So just getting into that safety culture and how safety really can help with morale, with team, but it can't happen without the leadership's commitment. So as owner, manager, foreman, whatever the title may be, you've got to have your buy-in when it comes to safety. And that's going to be one of the biggest things that's going to get your team involved. So once the employees are all involved, they've got the buy-in, they're excited, they want to do these hazard assessments because they know that there's a chance if they could have got hurt, maybe they've now prevented that. They can work, they can enjoy life doing what they enjoy doing. And this plan, believe me, once people buy in, they're going to want to say, hey, what can we do next? What can we do better? What else is there that's possible? There's going to be some costs to train people, get some PPE, get a plan in place. Lack of knowledge, maybe just don't know where to start. Insufficient leadership. Maybe the leaders don't quite realize how they're going to get this implemented and started. Time constraints, everybody's busy. We know every workplace, everybody is busy. And the regulatory complexities. How many of you are super familiar with occupational health and safety? We got a few hands. That's good. So how a company like us can help? Well, we've worked with plenty of companies that have newly implemented a safety plan. And it takes baby steps. And that's how we work. We work as little or as much as somebody needs us. Cost concerns, well, you need to understand that the investment will make sense. Get it? It's going to cost you now, but think of what it's probably going to save you later. Lack of knowledge, well, that's what we're here for. We got some pretty good safety people on our team, and we're there to support the leadership. We've been through changes ourselves as a company, and whether it's a safety change or something different, back to those steps. And the time constraints, well, rather than pulling you off the farm where you're needed, it can be a great idea to hire a company that already does that every single day. And we know the regulations. So this is my dad. He passed away, I guess it's been 14 years now. And I sure wish that I would have been in the safety business a lot earlier, so maybe I could have been part of preventing this. So, we're going to shift focus. Driving. So Class 1, some of you probably have heard that there are some new exemptions out there. So one in particular, we have the farm exemption. Now, has anybody used this exemption or curious about it? Okay. So the thing with this exemption, it's great. It's good that farmers have this option. But keep in mind, it's not going to solve everything. Some of the restrictions will be, number one, the license will have a P on it, so it's specifically meant for farm purposes. Some people like to do other things in their downtime, so your license would probably not permit that. Restricts travel to be within Alberta only, and you would be transporting farm types of things. And this is only for immediate family members. To get this Class 1 exemption, you still got to do the same tests. So there's still going to be a written test, and there's going to be a road test. And SBC is ready and willing to support. Maybe you're not taking the full melt, but if you need some help, especially in the vehicle, to make sure that you're going to pass that first time, we can set some hours aside for that to help out. And with some of the knowledge side. Come April of next year, some of the changes coming to MELT will be that instead of the in-classroom portion, that's going to be transitioning into online training. Still very similar in yard and in vehicle hours, and then continuous learning hours, kind of like a mentorship program. Sounds to be what's going to be happening. And further in the future yet, the idea with the government of Alberta is that Class 1 will potentially become a trade. So when that happens, again, there'll be more changes coming out that will be around to fill everybody in. Class 3, this is something that people don't always consider. We find a lot of our clients come to us, well, we need a Class 1. Well, do you for sure need a Class 1? So depending on your vehicles, your 3/4 axle, tandem triaxle type vehicles, Class 3 is a better route. You do need to be 18, really, it doesn't matter, Class 3, Class 1, to be eligible, and you need to have your full Class 5, so no restrictions on your license. You will need to take air brakes, and there is a knowledge and road test you need to pass. A very inexpensive route compared to looking at the Class 1. It's variable. It's really up to the driver and their experience level. We guide and say, hey, you know what? I think you got it. You can probably pass this road test, or maybe you need a few more hours. So our average seems like it's been around that $1,500. Now we have a cool pathway. If you already have a Class 3, you could be eligible to upgrade to a Class 1 experience and equivalency. So what happens here is you've had your Class 3 or something equivalent in another jurisdiction for 2 years or more, and you have some paperwork to log that data. So logbooks, a signed letter from an employer, or perhaps you're self-employed and you're able to produce some proof of this time. You would need to apply with Alberta Transportation. It's up to them to decide if they choose to approve you to take the Class 1 E&E, but what you're looking at is 40 hours of training and around that $4,000 mark. Now Class 1, I didn't have it in a slide, but what you're looking at is more like 113 hours and about $11,000. Now one thing that we do really well with our Class 1 is we make sure you get in and out. Our program typically takes 1 minute left, Kate. Our program typically takes about 6 weeks. So depending if you're one of the first ones in the program, you're going to get in a little bit quicker. But what we have in place right now, our December melt, we got a few spots left. We'd love to fill them. So we've got about $500 savings towards taking that particular course. So I guess I got 1 minute. Anybody have any questions? All right, well, we do have a booth. We're by the pavilion in that middle area. So if anybody wants to come and chat with us a little more, you're wondering anything, by all means. And I have some cards as well here that you can just fire off an email. But thank you so much for spending your time here with SBC. Have a great rest of the conference.